welcome, Neil, to the Total Recall podcast. It's great to finally have you on here. I know we've been talking for a number of weeks around your technology, and you are indeed the founder of a company called Portainer, Portainer.io, which is focused on containers and Kubernetes. So I'm going to not assume where the name for the business comes from, but I'll hand over to you to introduce, if you don't mind.
Sure, thanks, Phil. So Portainer is actually a play off the great big cranes you see down at the ports. You know, those great big high cranes, those things are actually called Portainers. That's their actual brand name, Portainer, which was interesting when we came to try and trademark Portainer.io, but different story. And the whole premise of those monstrous cranes is to load and unload containers from ships as efficiently as possible. And I thought at the time that perfectly describes what I want us to do. I want us to help unload and load, start, stop, container-based applications as quickly and efficiently as possible. So that's where it came from, actually.
Oh, nice. Well, ironically, another podcast of ours I did with a guy from Tanzu, Brian Ross, and the analogy that he used was those Portainers when we started talking about Kubernetes and what the hell it was and where it comes from.
Go.
So yeah,
free branding.
Yeah. Yeah, well, I thought it was pretty interesting. I mean, you started to allude to it when we were just chatting beforehand, and trying to change people's perceptions of what you guys do. So why don't you just tell me a little bit about that? So what did you do that now you do differently?
Well, we've been around a while, actually. I would say we're probably one of the old dogs in regards to the container ecosystem. You know, we first started out, I think it was around 2016. Now I kind of lost track of time. Purely as a graphical UI to manage Docker standalone environments, and morphed that to Docker Swarm. And we were kind of, stuck on Docker Swarm for quite some time. We've focused from day one on making it ridiculously easy to deploy and manage container-based applications on the underlying platform. And for a long time, we kind of held out on Kubernetes because we just couldn't find a way to make Kubernetes usable by mere mortal humans. And so we held out, and then 2 years ago kind of made the pivot, said, all right, okay, Kubernetes is kind of stabilized now, the APIs are stabilized now. We can actually really get in there and kind of add value to that whole layer and make it far easier to consume. So what we was a Docker tool, and it's fair to say that probably most people who listen to this podcast would probably know us as a Docker tool. But we've spent substantial time, money, effort rebuilding the product to be a container deployment tool across any orchestrator, any Docker runtime, anywhere. So we even support Nomad as an example.
Oh, okay. So if you think there's people listening here who are in the platform engineering community, that they're in the software engineering community, they're SREs, whatever they may be, who's the user? Who's the perfect person for you to kind of reach out to now and say, right, if you're doing this, this is what we can do.
Yeah, we've always had a relatively long-held ideal customer profile or ideal user profile. And in all honesty, it's actually an enabler for those that might not otherwise be able to. So there's in IT, there's quite a large gamut of skill and capability. I use the phrase taking to tech like a duck takes to water, right? Any duck can land on water and it's happy as. Not everyone has that same capability when it comes to technology. New technology for others, for some people, takes a long time to sort of gel in their mind and figure their way through it. And Portainer was really built for that type of person, or more generally, an organization or a company with that type of IT staff. It's to say, well, they really want to use something like Kubernetes, but their people are really struggling to get their head around it. And there's too many levers, too many dials, too many switches, too many variables, too many configuration options. We just want to use the damn thing. And so Portainer from day one has been targeted towards those who just want to use the tech. They don't want to have to get around and fiddle with all the switches and dials. So that's kind of put us down a particular channel. We attract that type of user. And so the SRE or expert persona sometimes looks at Portainer and says, what for? we can do all this with fully automated code. And so we've also gone on a bit of a journey of discovery ourselves and said, well, yep, it's pretty cool actually enabling those that would otherwise struggle, but at the same time, we can't alienate those that also would like to benefit from a lot of our other capabilities, like centralization of user identity, role-based access control, API proxies. There's a bunch of really cool capability in the product, but that particular audience wouldn't adopt that tech from us because of this other piece of Portainer, which kind of feels a bit unnatural for experts.
And I suppose that then alleviates one of the problems that I'm seeing and that we're seeing at Rekall is the demand for Kubernetes specialist talent. You know, a lot of people are asking now for certain specialisms when it comes to deployment production environments of Kubernetes. And I think the demand is not quite yet met by the talent from what I'm seeing. I'm seeing a lot of people that are aware of Kubernetes and then have seen people use Kubernetes, but you know, there are not a host of people who can go and actually install it and use it in the production environment and actually be, you know, hands-on, efficient with it. So I guess then your technology is kind of plugging a bit of a gap in the market there, where perhaps the skill sets may not be as high as what people need them to be. You know, you can then use Portainer to kind of bridge that gap. Is that fair?
Yeah, I'm going to show my age, but there was this phenomenon called a paper MCSE,
Right.
where you could go and buy all of the Microsoft MCSE boot camps, and you could exam cram, and they taught you the answers to the exams. They didn't teach you what you were doing; they taught you the answers to the exams. And unfortunately, I'm seeing that same trend happen again now with CKA, CKD, the actual Kubernetes certifications. People are
Yeah.
posting exam crams and they're learning the exam crams, passing the exams and getting certified,
Mm.
which does nothing to help the actual adoption of the technology from people who have hands-on, blood on their back from the whips, trying to figure out how this thing actually works in reality and learning all the pitfalls that come with the product. Kubernetes it's an amazing piece of technology. First in my career, we've had a piece of technology that's unified the way that you deploy and manage infrastructure.
Mm.
But it's so infinitely flexible. Unless you know what you're doing, you can accidentally get yourself something that you put into production, but you don't actually know what you're doing. So when something goes wrong, and eventually it will, everything does, and probably it's DNS, but so something will go wrong. If you don't know how to triage that, because you kind of stumbled your way and you got it working, you're in for a world of pain. And it's people who have gone through that world of pain that have
Yeah.
genuinely learned experiences that are rare as hen's teeth. And
Yeah.
it's that skill, that capability that we're trying to prop up with Portainer. Say, well, okay, so if that skill is rare, well then when a company manages to get one, let's make sure that one person is only doing the coolest, most technical stuff, and let's alleviate all of the boring stuff from them, and
Mm.
let's let Portainer do that for them.
Oh, right. Okay. That's interesting. And I think from, you know, from what you're saying there in like real use case environments where people have got blood on their back, um, I, I mean, the post that you interacted with of mine the other day, which was calling for help really from the Kubernetes community to say, right, how do you actually assess and identify, you know, individuals and their Kubernetes journey and where they do have blood on their back? And honestly, I've had so many people message me and saying I'm in exactly the same boat. You know, these are people that are run tech divisions. These are people that are, you know, trying to hire these people themselves, saying, you know, I'm finding it difficult. I'm having a nightmare. I use this method. I use this method, and everybody's got a different wacky way of trying to identify people who have like the skill sets required. Um, there was never two the same. There was no two, you know,
Mm-hmm.
someone said set up a, you know, a hosted cloud environment. Somebody said, well, we just ask them these questions. And, you know, it's quite interesting to see how everybody approaches it differently. I mean, what is your kind of approach? Because obviously you've built a business now which has had $6 million of investment. Um, correct me if I'm wrong. And
More actually,
what
12.
12, nice.
Yeah.
Okay, so you've had $12 million put into the business, which obviously inherently means either, you know, growth of staff personnel, growth of the product. Maybe they both go hand in hand. You know, what's been your challenges and how have you identified the right people for your business?
You see, one of the things with us, right? So we're trying to build a product that makes it easier to do something. In order to make it easier, we have to understand that thing that we're trying to make easier better than anyone else. So it's forced us to go and hire a bunch of really, really, really talented individuals who have been operating these platforms on a day-to-day basis. Now, a lot of these people are incredibly expensive, and so we end up contracting some of their skill, or we've hired some. We have hired some internally. But you need to learn from them. You have to ask them a lot of questions and learn. Okay, so in production, in this type of scenario, what would you do? What are the things that you would look for? How would you set this up? And then we're trying to build their experience in code, and that's basically what we've done. We've tried to encode best practices into the product and understanding.
Mm.
The way that I did it, I actually worked really hard to find one person who was amazing, and then I had that one person hire other amazing people.
Oh, nice.
There's a thing, yeah, A employees hire A employees.
Yeah.
Yeah, B employees hire C employees. So make sure that you get an A employee and have that A employee say, find someone who's as good as you, if not better, and they will. So
Interest, delegate. I like it.
yeah, that first hire is hard, but once you got that first hire, then that first hire can hire all the others, because they're not going to hire someone who's lower than them. They're going to try and hire a peer.
Oh, right. Okay. That's pretty interesting. Maybe I could use that internally for myself. And I think I find it interesting as well, from a funding perspective, because I've been speaking to a few VCs, a couple of which are on the podcast, around the state of funding at the moment, and the VC appetite, for startups and to start throwing large sums of money. I mean, $12 million of investment is a significant figure. What was the journey for you from? I mean, obviously you're ex-IBM. You've gone from IBM, one of the biggest brands on the planet across all brands, to self-employment, to now, a cool Kubernetes organization with $12 million behind them. How did that journey kind of take its course?
Some people say I don't play well with others. But no, I've always had this innate desire to solve problems, and working for somebody, you're always kind of limited or constrained into the problems that you can solve. And so I found it easier to go out and work with other people, other like-minded people who said, well, we actually want to try and deliver a better IT experience. We want to deliver. We went out and the three of us went out and built a VMware consulting practice, and that consulting practice got really, really strong. I've had 20 years VMware experience, roughly, I think it is. So you became really competent in virtualization, and that allowed me to travel around Asia and get a lot of exposure to incredibly large banks and telcos and everything you can possibly imagine. But still, the common thread through that is I just love solving problems. It's as simple as that. And when I stumbled across the Docker technology way back when, I'm like, man, this tech is an absolute game changer. It's there's no way once someone sees how this works, they're never going to go back to VMs again. It's VMs seem so old fashioned. This is like the it's going to be the way. And I thought, man, but virtualization technology, it's so mature. The tooling is well understood. It has a very, very wide range of skilled people in the market. Pretty much any country in the world you can go to, there's at least VMware certified people everywhere. Any country, you name it. And it's very well understood. And I thought, well, hang on, this new tech is going to be a game changer, but it's going to have the same struggles that VMware did back in the day. Mm-hmm. How can we learn from that? How can we actually try and bootstrap? How can we bring these things together? And I just naturally started solving problems in my mind, and those problems, or the solutions to the problems in my mind I was thinking, ended up in a product called Portainer. So that's just the way it is.
And what's your perspective, in your experience, of the go-to-market strategy of what is effectively a dev-first company? Do you take the PLG approach, the bottom-up kind of sell? Because your background, you're not a salesperson per se. You come from a problem-solving technologist background. And I've seen a lot of companies who are dev first not hire salespeople. That they hire people like yourself who are very good communicators, good problem solvers, who can get in front of customers and do just that. Whereas some people still stick to what I perhaps see as more of a traditional route to market, which is, hire a first person in the territory sales, then a SDR and a marketer. What have you seen work well? What has perhaps not worked well, one versus the other?
So we're not necessarily a dev first organization, right? So Portainer has two kind of personas. It has the operator persona, so ops, admin, call them what you like, and that particular person, whoever owns the platform, that particular person is the person who decides to deploy Portainer and use Portainer to set up golden paths, and with those golden paths set up a whole bunch of capability that the devs can then go and consume safely through Portainer's transparent API. Devs may or may not use Portainer to do their day-to-day activities. They may choose to log in and use our guided toolset. They may choose to leverage our API proxy directly. So we're not necessarily dev first. And so as a result, we decided that we weren't a pure PLG company. Yes, there is a PLG element to us, and that is more in regards to influence. People hear about Portainer. I'm on so many sales calls, and someone says, "Oh yeah, my boss is using Portainer at home and said it's amazing, and said that we should actually look at it at work." We got into some of the biggest name brands in the world because someone's boss used Portainer at home.
Yeah.
So from that perspective, we're PLG in regards to influence, but in regards to selling, we're not so much because we go in and take control of the infrastructure. The Portainer platform that you install expects to take control of all the clusters that you're now going to manage behind it. It is more of an architectural or a managerial decision to say, yep, we want to put this thing in, and this is going to be our control point for all of these clusters underneath it. And so in that regards, we actually have a consulting selling team as well. So people like me who are consulting selling. And so an organization can say, hey, here's my problems. How can you help me? And we'll consult and sell in that regards.
Okay. So how do you get from point A to point B, from where you've got these consulting engineers, these people who can go and have those conversations and get them in front of the right person? Like you say, you've got somebody on numerous occasions, I would presume, who have come across your platform by one guise or another, started using it at home in their lab environment, and then thought, actually, this is really good. Let's get this into the work environment. How do you do that? How do you target and get into the eyeballs and onto the fingertips of that person at home?
Well, that's the PLG element, right? So that you'll notice that we've actually got two free products. We've got our open source community edition, which is about 70% of the features of our full commercial variant. Then we've actually got our 5 nodes free offering, which is the full commercial version, free for use for 5 nodes. And we said 5 nodes is a pretty good size for a home lab. Most home labbers would have 5 nodes, probably. And so we said let's make it really, really easy for the home labbers, the experimenters, the tinkerers to get our full version and be able to play with it all, because then they get really competent in the tech, they understand the tech, they trust the tech, and then when the time's right and they happen to overhear a need inside their work, like I've got a solution. So most of our inquiry comes from direct inbound. So where people are hitting us on a website and saying, hey, we've actually heard about you through XYZ or from this particular person. We've got a problem we think you can solve. Can you help us? And that's how we get most of our inbound, probably 95% of our inbound. The rest of it is events and other traditional marketing stuff.
Okay, so you're effectively teasing users into the use of open source with 5 nodes at home, and then once they realize how cool this thing is, they're bought in, and they then have to subscribe.
I don't like the word teasing, because so people using it at home, it's always free for them.
Yeah.
Right. So they use it at home. They actually learn the tech, trust the tech. It's when they then go take it to the office.
Yeah.
And even at the office can subscribe for a 5 node free license too and get going. But then eventually they get their 6th node, 7th node, 8th node, and now it's actually a commercial transaction.
Okay. So let's say that there's somebody listening who's in marketing, because one of the interesting things that I've seen over the last 12 months is people trying to transition from traditional marketing, B to B, B to C, into B to D, and being a dev rel for example, or a product marketer for dev communities. So those people transitioning, they're not typically from this environment where we know what a node is. How do I approach people who are, or what's a node? So if we kind of take the tech talk down to a level where people like me understand what we're talking about, like, so if you say nodes, what is a node?
Okay, so what is a node? It is a unit of compute processing power that runs a Docker engine or some other container runtime.
So this is somebody at home that's got quite a good setup. They've got quite a high performance computer, and they're into tech. They're into their
So
home.
At home, a node might be a Raspberry Pi, it might be an Intel NUC, might be an old PC that they've actually rebuilt with Ubuntu, and they've installed Docker on it, or they've got a 3-node cluster and they're running micro K8s or K3s, and they want to install something on it, they manage it.
Right. Okay.
That's that kind of analogy there.
So would you say is that B to D? Would you say, or is that B to C? Because you're getting people to use it.
I would say it's B to E, to engineer.
Okay.
So it's just someone who likes using technology to solve problems. That's as simple as that. It could be a developer, it could be an engineer who is being told to go and deploy the latest fancy off the shelf application. Because don't forget, Kubernetes is not just for developers. There are organizations out there who buy software, and that software ships as containers, and so some poor soul has to get that software from the vendor and get it running on Kubernetes. There's no dev or DevOps person there, because they're not actually developing code. So Kubernetes is far more than just for devs. So it's an engineer, an IT administrator, IT engineering, IT architect. It's that type of person that we're speaking to. So I'd say B to E.
Right.
And it's very different, because engineers don't lie to each other. You just don't, right? No engineer is going to throw another one under the bus. So the product has to do what it says on the box. So never make any overinflated claims about what you're going to do. Be very, very careful. It's almost anti-marketing. You've just got to be legit. This is what we do. This is the benefit. Don't make bold claims. Just this is it. And it's funny, because like a marketeer will like, hang on a second, we're not hyping this up. It's not graphic here. It's like, but if we amp it up, they simply will not believe it, and they'll move on.
Yeah, that is one of the resounding messages that I see in the DevRel, the dev advocacy community, where people say to me, if we slip off 0.1% and it doesn't do exactly what I said, people disengage and they tell everybody not to engage.
Absolutely.
It's ruthless. It's a ruthless game, the dev game.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah, but I understand you're off to America for a period of time to go and beat the drum over there and see some new customers. Is that right?
Yeah, most of our adoption is actually America and Europe, and so we're sponsoring some events up there, and so we've got 3 events in America. Got 1 event in Europe to go attend, the Canonical event over in Europe.
Nice.
There's just a lot going on, and I'm just really trying to spread the word of what we are now as opposed to what we were. Sometimes I say it's harder actually not rebuilding a brand, but expanding the market perception of a brand versus building a brand new. I'm not sure which is easier. So we haven't spent a lot of time and effort saying that this is what we are, this is what we do now. Take a look. Any kind of perceptions you had of us a year ago probably are long gone, and the product has evolved so much. With that money from VCs, most of it has gone into engineering.
Oh, right. Okay. So the product is is very much on point. Yeah. Okay. So Europe, what are the dates that you're in Europe?
7th, 8th, 9th of November, I think it is.
Okay. So if any engineers, or if anybody that's running large, in Prague, very nice. Yep. Okay. And then America, you go from Europe to America to 2 more events, you say?
So go up to the US. I got an event in New York, then going to KubeCon, and then to Prague, and then back to the US to go to Gartner in Vegas in early December. Okay.
So what I'll do then is, if anybody in those locations at those times wants to get together and talk to you, about Portainer and potentially what it can do and its functionality, they can reach out to you directly.
Absolutely, yeah.
Ah, wicked.
I
Okay.
my email address is shared everywhere. You'll see me very active on Twitter. You'll see me very active on Reddit, taking my life into my own hands.
Yes.
And my email address is there, just neil@portainer.io. So
Okay.
pretty easy to reach.
Well, I'll share that, and I shared actually your Reddit post with a few people that I know in the industry, and they said that you were very brave as a CEO to share a to share a Reddit post as you did. What prompted you to do that? You're obviously backing yourself super hard doing that.
I just really wanted to know how we can be more appealing to the expert user. I mean, we've already got our ICP for that non-expert or the person who needs help kind of down pat. We know that people love us for that, but this other audience, they're a very different audience, very different use cases, very different expectations. And I'm like, well, I can't just go aimlessly start trying to tell the Portainer story to that audience. I'll just get shot down. I first of all need to understand what do they think, and I expected it to be bad because we never built the product for that audience, and so I just wanted to understand it, and I think it was very well received. I got a lot of very positive feedback, and I've come away from that, and I've already built a strategy which we'll be talking about very soon, around what we're going to do and how we're going to be having a whole new product, Portainer Kubernetes platform,
Nice.
which is going to be focusing specifically to that kind of SRE DevOps person, and it's going to be 100% infrastructure as code based.
Oh,
And
wicked.
that was all thanks to the honesty of these people responding to that Reddit post.
That's the good thing about the community, isn't it? It is a very helpful community. Again, I showed with that post I put on the other day. I've had so many dev engineers, so many dev leaders come to me with their ideas, with help. People have given me some great offers to say, if you need some help and I can come onto a call with you and help you assess and give you a framework. It is a very helpful community of people in the dev. And if you obviously, take I don't think it's a risk, but if you're brave and you put yourself out there, you get the results, and now your next iteration of the business could take you onto another level of revenue. So it's commendable for sure.
Yeah, it could have backfired spectacularly. And I think the main thing is just going in and being humble, just saying, look, this is what I'm trying to achieve. I was being very careful to make sure it was clear that I was asking for help, that I wasn't trying to sell to them, because that's actually a fine line in perception. And if you cross that line, it would have gone terribly.
Well, yeah, I always say if you're going to fall forward on your face, at least trying to move forwards, not back. So
absolutely.
Well, look, I know I'm about to run out of time with you, but I do appreciate the time that you've given me, and hopefully, everybody listening now understands the new direction, the new version of the business that you've developed, and we'll be in touch to meet you in America, to meet you in Prague when you're over, and it proved to be very successful for you.
Thanks for the opportunity.
That's my pleasure, Neil, and it's lovely to meet you.
And you.
All right, take care.
Yeah.